Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to give it maybe a minute or so before we get started to make sure that everyone is able to get into the room. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We are recording, and you have the ability to drop a question in the chat if you would like. We also have the option, if you need a language other than English, we have the ability for you to go to a different site and log in and listen to or read the transcript of what we're recording in the language that you would prefer. That information can also be found in the chat. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I just want to thank you all for joining us today. We know it's probably been a long day, and so thank you for taking a few minutes to come listen to us and to learn a little more about the transition from middle school to high school. We know that this is an exciting time for our middle school students, but we also know that it can be a stressful time as well, and we wanted to provide an opportunity for you to be able to ask questions, but also get some additional information on that transition process and hopefully ease some anxiety. Before we get started, I want to introduce myself. My name is Dr. LaShonda Lewis. I am the Counseling Services Coordinator for our amazing district, Round Rock ISD. And I have with me tonight some of our, just three of our amazing counselors that we have across the district. And I will start, I will just let them introduce themselves. Celia, would you like to go first?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Celia Eichbush, and I am the 8th grade counselor, currently the 8th grade counselor at Cedar Valley Middle School.
Annette?
Hi, I'm Annette Hansen, and I am the proud lead counselor at McNeil High School.
And Naomi?
Hi, I'm Naomi Galvan. I am the 8th grade counselor at Canyon Vista Middle School.
All right, thank you, ladies. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that will give you all an opportunity to see us a little bit better. We do have a few slides tonight that our counselors will be sharing with you. But as we get started, we are going to start with just an overview of our 8th and 9th grade timeline, our 8th grade timeline in particular.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Lewis and everybody for being here tonight. So Dr. Lewis already mentioned this is a really exciting time from 8th to 9th grade. It is a transition time for sure, and it's very fun. It's very exciting. And so I just wanted to go over just briefly the timeline and kind of what that looks like and what you can expect this year for that transition for your 8th graders. So basically right now, starting really last month, this month, September, October, November, is when you should be starting to review your middle school to high school transition guide. And I believe that link is going to be here. And so you'll want to look over that. It's a document, I don't know, like 38, 40 pages or so. And so you want to look over that. Also, your 8th graders should have already completed what we call the career interest inventory. Edu things is what it's called. And so your students, 8th graders should have already done that by the end of October. You might ask them if they haven't done that, they should have done that. Tell them to talk to their counselor. And so that's what happens up to this point. Then we'll get through the rest of the semester. And then once we come back from winter break in January and February is really when like all the fun really starts and the ball starts rolling very, very quickly. So, you know, in the past, that's when high school orientation starts to happen. And, you know, in the past that was done on campus. This year, I think a lot of it is going to be done virtually. But high school orientation is going to occur in January and February. You'll have an opportunity to attend some parent meetings, and those should be held probably virtually as well. although every school could be slightly different, but that's probably what's going to happen for most. And then any students that you might be thinking, well, they might not go to the next, like, or the school that's in your feeder pattern, might be
Actually share my screen. Have a few slides. I'm a visual learner, so I have to present that way also. So when your students are beginning to register for their 9th grade year, we'll go over graduation requirements. And so this slide shows those graduation requirements that are required by TEA. Round Rock ISD does really encourage students to select the distinguished level of achievement for their graduation plan. There are 3 different graduation plans that students can graduate from in the state of Texas, but this is the only graduation plan that will qualify a student for automatic admissions regarding like top 10% and things like that. So the distinguished level of achievement is the one that we always set kids on from the get-go. And then if there needs to be adjustments down the road, we can adjust as needed, but we really encourage all students to work towards this plan, which includes 4 years or 4 credits of English, 1, 2, 3, and 4 credits of math to include algebra 1 and 2, geometry, and 1 more advanced math course of the student's choice, 4 credits of science, which must include biology, IPC, and an advanced science class, plus 2 additional advanced science courses, 4 credits of social studies, which include world geography, world history, US history, government and economics. There are some new history classes that are coming on board that we're really excited about. And so when your students meet with your counselors, there'll be some other options for that as well that are just coming off kind of hot off the presses. So it didn't even make it into this listing, but we're really excited to offer those. All students are required to have 2 credits in the same language, which many students earn in middle school. So your student may already enter high school fulfilling this requirement. A fine arts credit, again, that's another requirement that many students come into high school fulfilled already with Art 1 that's at the high school level taken in 8th grade. They have to have 1 credit of physical education, and many things can substitute for that, including band and ROTC, and there's lots of substitutions. So that's one to look into. It's not just sports or PE. And then a total of 7 electives from any area that your student would like to take their elective courses. And then it does require an endorsement. And we'll talk about endorsements a little bit more, but your student can earn one of 5 different endorsements or multiple endorsements. Many of our students will graduate with 2 or 3 endorsements, but the requirement is 1. So you have your 27 required credits plus your endorsement, and that's what's going to get them eligible for graduation. These courses, your high school counselors will review these courses each year. Each year, our high school counselors meet individually with a one-on-one conference with every single student. Parents are invited to these one-on-one meetings. And in these conferences, we'll discuss with you and your student course selections for the next year, their endorsement from their program of study pathway, information about the academy that they've chosen to continue that program of study, any performance acknowledgements, which are acknowledgements that are added to a student's transcript to indicate high performance in different academic areas. We talk about the path to graduation and their credits. Are they on track to do what they want to do and graduate with all of the endorsements and performance acknowledgements and dual credit hours? Like what are their goals? Are they on track to reach their goals? And then we also talk to them about college and career readiness and college and career planning every year. So it's really important to note that these 4-year plan meetings, these one-on-ones are fluid. Your 4-year plan is never set in stone. It's more like a guide. And so we just want to make sure that you're aware of a clear pathway that you have to meet your goals, and understand that goals shift and change, and that your counselor is here to support you as you meander through your high school years and deciding what you want to do post-secondary. So plans change, that's okay. You don't have to be married to your 4-year plan. We just want to make sure that you do have a plan and that we can support you to reach your goals. So for 4-year plans, schedule changes are tied closely into those course selections and 4-year plans and picking your classes each year. So we want to be sure that we communicate to families, because this is something that is brand new as you enter high school. It's different from middle school with your course selection, but we do follow Rock ISD guidelines, which are they are shared in our course catalog on your school's websites. But there are some guidelines to schedule changes that the district has in place for all of our high schools, and that is that you can request a change within the first 10 class days for corrections. So corrections means maybe the counselor had an error in entry. So when we get your choice selection sheets, if we're off by a digit and a wrong class comes up. So, if you see your schedule and you're like, that's not what I selected, we can verify it with your course selection sheet. If your student registers for a class, but we learn that they don't meet the prerequisite for that class, they can get a change. Or if a student already has credit for that class. So if they had Art 1 at the high school level in 8th grade and they registered for Art 1 again, we can change them into Art 2 or a different class. We do have a request period for what we call level changes. So if a student registers for an advanced course, an AP course, an IB course, they have after the first 3 weeks of school to request a change. There has to be evidence of intervention, so student tutorials, communication with the teacher, redo and retakes. Also, parent-teacher conferences are required for that as well, based on our district guidelines. So it's really important that students and parents, that they familiarize themselves with the course catalog for descriptions of every course to make sure that is indeed the course that you want to take. Double check your schedule verification in the spring. So on Home Access Center, after your classes are input, you can actually check your schedules for the next year. It's not your schedule, I should say. It's not the order in which you have your classes, but it's your class selection, your choices that have been entered. And you should email your high school counselor immediately if there is an issue with the classes that you see in HACC versus the classes you thought that you registered for. And it's important to reach out to your counselor if you have questions about any of those classes before you select them. So if you're unsure about a class, you have a question about a class, your counselors are here to help you out with that. If you read the course catalog and you're still wondering about something. So with schedule changes, it's really important to realize that we really try our best to follow the district guidelines for schedule changes. Families should know that our master schedule is designed completely around student interest and student selections. So it's designed to maximize student opportunities so kids can take as many of the classes that they want while minimizing scheduling conflict. At our schools, teaching assignments are who we hire, the master schedule, they're all based on these requests. So it's really important that students stay in these courses in order to keep our classes balanced. If too many kids get in a class and the request changes, our course loads change, and we don't want a class that has 40 kids and a class that has 10 kids. So we want to keep those classes balanced so that everyone can learn to their best ability. The other thing is now you're in high school. So we have, these credits are really important, and changing a schedule too far into a semester puts students in jeopardy of losing credits in certain areas. You have to have so much time in a class to be able to earn those credits. We also want to recognize mental health for our students and our teachers. So teachers have to catch students up on any missed assignments for, schedule changes that occur after the first day of class. And students that have changes have to continue with all their other classes while they're also making up work for the new class. And so we don't want to, overburden students and teachers with the workload. And then probably most importantly is equity. We want every student on our campuses to have the same opportunities and the same guidelines relating to schedule changes. So we really want to make sure that we have a solid plan in place to support kids, to have them in the classes where they need to be. but also that we are equitable and fair to all of our students on campus. And I think that's there.
Thank you, Annette. We do have a couple questions in the question and answer and also in the chat. So one of the questions is, when do students meet with their counselors to draft their 4-year plans? And so that is going to vary depending on the high school that your child is zoned to go to for the school year. The Cedar Ridge Learning Community has already started collecting course selections from students. So they're probably going to be meeting with their students a little bit earlier than maybe our other high schools. The best way to find out when your child will be expected, or you'll be expected to meet with your high school counselor, is to contact the middle school counselor right now. They have the timeline of when the students will get access to their course selections, also when parent meetings will be taking place, as well as traditionally we do a field trip to the high school campuses where the middle school students can go and kind of view some of the course selections, CTE courses, which are career and tech courses that students can take at the high school campus. But this year, because of COVID-19, our CTE department is putting together a video for those students to view. And so parents will have access to that video as well. It is not ready at the time, but it should be ready within the next couple of weeks. So if you have questions on when your student is going to be picking their course selections, when they're going to be meeting with their high school counselor, it's best to reach out to your middle school counselor right now. This is a question for Naomi. Can you please tell me what was the prereq that a student needs to complete by the end of October that you mentioned? And I believe that question was also in our question and answer, and they're referring to the EduThings career inventory. So we ask that all of our middle school 8th graders complete the career inventory each year. Each year, it changes the name of it. This year, we're using a program called EduThings, and it really gives the students a breakdown of what are their interests, what are their likes, and kind of equates that to a career that they may like, in the future. And the benefit of that is that those careers then match up to our academies and help the students decide on what academies they're going to go into, which ultimately help them decide on the endorsement track that they're going to be graduating on by the time they're a senior. And I just want to get to a couple of questions because I want to keep them as close to the presentation as possible. But does orchestra, whether it's intermediate or honors, from middle school count towards any credits in high school? I'm going to leave that over to my middle school counselors, but I don't believe that we have any courses. Okay, we don't have any band or orchestra courses that are taken in middle school that are counted for high school credit at this time. In case we need any guidance on selecting courses for high school in February 2021, to whom can we reach out and how? So you would reach out if your child is in high school at that time. You will reach out to your high school counselor. But if you're talking about 2021, so next February, your student will still be with their middle school counselor, and their middle school counselor will be able to help answer most of those questions. If there is a question that your middle school counselor is not able to answer, then they will connect you with the high school counselor that will be working with your student once they enroll in high school. And does early college high school have any benefit over other schools? We may get to that information here in a few minutes, so I'm going to leave that question, and I am going to actually turn it over to Ms. Celia to discuss endorsements and academies and the difference between those two.
Thanks, Dr. Lewis. I'm going to share my screen here. I hope everybody can see that. Let's see. Are you able to see the screen with academies and endorsements? Perfect. I can't see it on my end, so I just want to make sure everybody can see it on their end. So as an 8th grade counselor, one of the biggest questions that I always get from parents is, what is the difference? We hear about academies, we hear about endorsements, we hear about programs of studies. How does that all work? And first of all, I want to assure parents that as counselors, we have been talking to your kids about academies and endorsements since they were in 6th grade. So we have been working with them till now to help them understand. But what I always tell parents is, I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson for Rock ISD. several years ago, the people at central office had a great idea, and they said, we really think it would be awesome for our students in Round Rock ISD to try to get an idea of what they might want to do post high school. So we want them to join what we're going to call academies, and like say a health science academy where they take a course every year, an elective course every year in health science studies, or an engineering academy where they take an elective course every year in engineering, and then they can graduate with an academy stole to wear at graduation. And then a few years later, the state of Texas said, we have this brilliant idea. We think kids ought to take 4 elective courses in high school that are related to each other to give them a better idea of what they want to do. And we're going to call those endorsements. So you're very lucky to have students in Round Rock ISD because we did it first. We've developed a really strong program where other districts around the state of Texas, when endorsements came out, were trying to figure out how they were going to wrap their heads around it. Round Rock ISD was already doing it and doing it very well. So one of the things is I start out with academy is a Round Rock ISD term. That is the language used in Round Rock ISD. Endorsements is a state of Texas term that is recognized across the state of Texas. So say a student transfers from Round Rock ISD to Georgetown ISD or Plano ISD, all of those school districts are going to recognize the term endorsements. When they apply for college, your colleges in the state of Texas are going to recognize the endorsement term that your student is going to graduate with. So a student will be in an academy, they'll choose an academy. And so if you look at the screen, you can see the differences. An academy in business and industry will lead to a business and industry endorsement. So that terminology is the same. But the Health Science Academy falls under the category of public service endorsement. So they'll graduate with the Health Science Academy STOL, and that all the classes that they took will be in health science. But the endorsement that they'll leave for college with or post-high school with will be public services, because that's where the health science falls under in the state of Texas. There's also a public service academy that leads to a public service endorsement. The STEM Academy will lead to a STEM endorsement. And then the other different language besides the Health Science Academy is the Visual and Performing Arts Academy, which will lead to the Arts and Humanities endorsement. So most of the language is the same from Round Rock to the state of Texas, except for Health Science leads to public service, and Visual and Performing Arts will lead to an Arts and Humanities endorsement that is recognized. Now, Dr. Lewis, you said you put the transition guide in the chat. So if parents are able to click on that transition guide and open that up, and if you can take a minute to scroll down to page 11 in your transition guide, you will see a way to earn an endorsement through Round Rock ISD academies. I always tell the students and the parents, don't think of picking from the top up and go, what endorsement do I want? Now, which academy do I want? Now, how am I going to get to that academy? You want to work from the bottom up. For instance, if you're interested in music, my son graduated with, he's a band director, so he graduated, he was very interested in music. So he took band every year. That put him in the Visual and Performing Arts Academy, which would then lead to an Arts and Humanities endorsement. If you have a student, say, that's interested in health science, they can look in the options of the program of study. So in the health science, they might pick biomedical science to take. That would lead them to the Health Science Academy, which would then lead them to the public service endorsement. If you look on page 11, like I said, if you're able to see that, there are several different types of programs of study. You're only going to have to pick a minimum of one to start with. So say you're interested, if I'm looking at a program of study of fashion and design, that falls under the Business and Industry Academy, which would lead to a business and industry endorsement. So as long as a student is choosing something that they're interested in to take as a course, it's going to put them in an academy, which will then lead to an endorsement. Now, there are options to get an endorsement that are non-academy options, such as if you take 5 math courses, 5, and one of them having to be a minimum of Algebra 2, correct, Dr. Lewis? 5 math courses, minimum of Algebra 2.
Correct.
Well, I just want to make sure I'm saying that correctly. Thank you. That will lead them to a STEM endorsement, but it won't put them in an academy. So they won't get an academy STEM stole at graduation. Correct, Annette? Am I saying that correctly? I just want to make sure I'm saying that correctly.
That's correct. So a student that has the that earns it's like the academic option to the STEM endorsement. It's the 5 math courses where 2 of them have algebra. 2 of those classes have to have algebra 2 as a prereq, and they also have to take chemistry and physics. So it's like a math science. So it's a 5 math plus chemistry and physics. They will have their endorsement, which is required for graduation, but they will not have an academy stole because math is not under an academy. It's an academic option, not an academy option.
So if you're looking at your transition guide on page 11, it tells you the different ways that you can be placed in an academy and then earn that endorsement. Now, there is another endorsement that I don't have on my screen, and that is the multidisciplinary endorsement. Now, the multidisciplinary endorsement is a way to earn an academy or an endorsement without kind of falling into one specific endorsement. So I'm going to let Dr. Lewis explain a little bit more about that multidisciplinary endorsement, being a little bit more familiar with it, if that's okay, Dr. Lewis.
I'm sorry, I was actually responding to some questions in the chat.
No, that's okay. I was just trying to get a better explanation of the multidisciplinary.
Okay, and I think this is actually going to lead to some of the answering some of the questions in the chat. And so your multidisciplinary endorsement is really kind of, you can think of it as a hodgepodge of courses that the student takes across endorsements. So for a student to be able to achieve an endorsement, they have to have 4 courses in a sequence. And so all of our students in Round Rock ISD, we hope that they are graduating on the distinguished level of achievement with endorsement, but we want all of our students to graduate with an endorsement. So if, let's say, for instance, they're taking courses in the public service endorsement realm, and then later on they decide, you know what, I don't think this is right for me. I want to move over to arts and humanity. They can still do that and graduate with a multidisciplinary endorsement. But we want to make sure that when they do that, that they have enough time to complete what they need in order to graduate with the correct courses. So when a student, you'll see when your student starts filling out their course selections for high school, they're going to be asked for an endorsement. Now, this, like I said, this can be changed, but we want to make sure that students are giving themselves enough time to complete the endorsement requirements. There was also a question in the chat on whether a student can have multiple endorsements. So could a student have a STEM endorsement and a public service endorsement? Yes, that is possible. But again, we want to make sure that the student has enough time to take care of all the courses that are required to achieve that endorsement, but also keeping in mind that they have those core courses and some specific electives that they have to take as well. Let me see, because there were quite a few questions here in the chat about endorsements.
And Dr. Lewis, can I say one of the questions that I'm seeing is, are all the endorsements offered at all the high schools? And all the high schools have the endorsements. Some of the programs of studies may vary. So again, if you're able to see that page 11 on that transition guide. So for instance, if you're looking, I'm looking at the very bottom of the business and industry column, the last bullet says video production, and it says CRHS, MHS, and WHS. So that means that program of study is offered at Cedar Ridge High School, McNeil High School, and Westwood High School. So all the endorsements are offered, all the academies are offered at all the high schools, but the programs of study options underneath each one may vary a little bit from high school to high school.
And
okay, and I saw
transfer also for those. So like at McNeil High School, we have students that are enrolled, for example, in our auto tech program, because auto tech isn't at every high school. So you can apply for a transfer for if there's a program of study that you are really interested in completing throughout high school. And we check those students every year, because in order to keep that transfer, you have to be enrolled in one of those programs of study courses that is not offered at your home campus. So if you change your mind and you said, I want to do auto tech, and then after your first year, you're like, nope, that's not for me, and you choose another program of study that is available at your home school, then your transfer would be denied for the next year. You have to go back to your home school.
Okay, I see that we have a steady flow of questions coming in, but I do want to get to GPA and rank and kind of helping parents to understand that. Annette, can you explain for our parents? We can see it.
Okay, there we go, unmuted. Okay, so GPA and rank GPA or rank. So it's kind of a side by side with GPA and rank. So for GPA, every single class that you take in high school is calculated into your GPA. And when we say every single class, we mean semester averages. So your report card grades are not individually factored. It's the semester average, which includes this year, because we're on a 9 weeks because of COVID, it's the first 2 9 weeks grading periods plus your midterm exam for the first semester, and your second 2 9 weeks grading periods plus the final exam for your second semester. So we only calculate semester averages, not individual report card grades. It's calculated at the end of every single semester, and these your GPA is unweighted. So that means it doesn't matter if you're taking AP Calculus BC or if you're taking on level English 1, the points are calculated the exact same way. So 90 to 100, all A's are 4 points, a B is 3 points, a C is 2 points, and anything below a 70 equals 0 points. What we want to be sure to tell kids is that it is entirely possible that you could have a perfect 4.0 GPA for making all A's in your classes, but have a lower class rank than someone who has a couple B's thrown in with their classes if they're taking advanced courses. So AP classes, IB classes, advanced classes. So GPA and class rank, although they are two important things, they're calculated completely differently. So for rank, rank only includes your core classes, which include English, math, science, social studies, and your languages other than English, which include things like American Sign Language, French, German, Latin, Spanish, etc. Those are calculated into rank. Again, a similarity is that we only calculate semester grades. So your individual report card grades are not calculated on their own. They are averaged for semester grades, and the semester grades are what are used. We calculate rank at the end of every semester after the freshman year. So if we have 8th grade families online right now, your student will not get their first rank until it's the fall of their sophomore year. If you are at Westwood High School, then you will get like a quartile, but they don't rank. So you'll get a quartile card that lets you know which quartile you're in. These are weighted points. So advanced AP and IB classes earn up to 6 points, and on-level classes earn up to 5 points. So this is something that we share with our students each year, just so they understand the difference. When you look at a GPA, this is the 4.0 scale. It's every single class that you take, and every A, whether it's a 90 or a 100, it's going to give you the same amount of points. So in this situation, as we're calculating GPA, if we look at these core classes of world geography, algebra 1, advanced biology, PE, and advanced Spanish 2, it doesn't matter if it's on level or advanced, the points are going to be 2, 3, or 4 regardless. So you add up all those points based on this chart, divide by the 5 classes, and that gives, for this example, a 3.2 GPA, 3.2 out of 4, because it is unweighted. For rank in class, we use a weighted scale where if you are in an advanced, an AP tag IB class, then those classes are weighted with more points than an on-level class. So for example, if you make a 100 in an on-level English 1 class, you will earn the same amount of points, which is 5 points, as a student who made a 90 in an advanced English 1 class. Again, these are only core classes that we take into rank, which include your languages other than English, and we get those semester grades. So in this example, for world geography as an on-level class of a 95 for the semester, that would give that student 4.5 points. On-level algebra 1 of an 87 will give that student 3.7 points. And these advanced classes now get weighted points, so it's like a bonus. So advanced biology of a 92 will give that student 5.2 points. Advanced English of a 99 would give that student 5.9 points. And advanced Spanish 2 would give that student that weighted points of an 87 would give them 4.7 points. So you take all those points, divide by their classes, that would give you a 4.8 that is calculated for rank. So we take this score, it's a rank GPA, and that's where students' ranks are, that's how they're calculated. So this is something I also always show our freshmen when we're learning how to calculate rank. In this case, just some things to remember. So our students take middle school classes that can confer high school credit. Those classes do not count. So we don't count middle school classes for GPA. We don't count middle school classes for rank. Other things is that our dual credit courses. So kids can take dual credit courses at ACC, on-ramps, or any other Texas university that has a dual credit program. Those classes also do not count. So any dual credit course and any middle school course will not count into this calculation. It's only the courses that you take in your high school. Even if like some high schools have dual credit courses that are taught as part of their school day, those classes will not count into your rank or GPA, even though they're taught on your high school campus, because they're still considered dual credit classes. So in this situation, it just shows like the orange are the classes that would not count. The green are all the classes that would count for rank. Every class counts for GPA. So if we're calculating in this example, this student would have a rank GPA of a 5.3957. That's how we would rank the kiddos. And their unweighted GPA that we would put on a transcript that asks for their GPA would be a 3.92231. So hopefully it's not too confusing. I went really fast, but if there's questions, I will for sure answer those questions. But that's what I have for rank and GPA.
And this information is also communicated in the transition guide, and your students will also receive a link in the spring semester for the high school course catalog. And that's going to list all of the courses that are available at that moment in time for your for students to take while they're in high school, but it also gives detailed information on how to look at class rank and GPA. You can view a copy of the current high school course catalog on our counseling services website, and I'll put that in the chat here in a little bit. We did have a question about middle school classes and how they count for GPA, and then also what that looks like in regards to when they go off to college. And so just FYI, the classes that you take in middle school, like Annette said, they don't count for if they're high school credit courses, they don't count towards your GPA or your rank in high school, but they do count for a high school credit. So it's still extremely important that you are being successful in those classes, because they will show up on your transcript that is given over to the colleges that you apply to. In particular with UT, and I think your question is really hitting at rank. So we hear a lot of times about, your rank is important, where you fall within the number of students in your course or your grade level is important. And traditionally schools, colleges look at the top 10%. Currently, the University of Texas is looking at the top 6% of their students. So basically the higher your rank is in relationship to the students in your grade level, the higher their chance is into potentially getting into the college of your choice. I'm not sure if that actually answers your question, but really just keep in mind that middle school courses don't count in your GPA or your rank. But if you're taking high school credit courses and you plan to go to a college like UT, they will be looking at that course that you took and what grade you made on that course in middle school.
And to answer the question about Westwood's rank, so Westwood High School does not rank their students outside of the top 10%. So by Texas law, every high school must rank their top 10% students because of the top 10% admissions for public colleges in Texas. So at Westwood High School, they will still rank their top 10% of students, but outside of the top 10%, there's no rank. If that answers that question, that's over there.
Okay, I want to get some of the questions that are in the question and answer for colleges. And so this is probably a little ways off for our middle school students, but do they consider the rank GPA or the regular GPA for college transcripts? Annette, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. So rank GPA is a term that we'll use in-house to determine your class rank. It's not something that's going to be posted on, like when a college asks for your GPA, they want to know your unweighted 4.0 GPA. That's why it's important when we tell kids all the time, you can have a 4.0 GPA, but you could also be ranked lower than someone who doesn't have a 4.0 GPA just based on the courses that you take. But when a college asks for a GPA, they are referring to the unweighted 4.0 GPA. When you apply for certain scholarships or like national merit or other things, they might have a specific question that asks for your unweighted GPA and a weighted GPA if your school has one. So we'll only give that weighted GPA if it's asked for specifically. Otherwise, it's that unweighted 4.0 GPA.
Thank you, Annette. There is a question, if my student did not take art in middle school, will they have to take art for high school credit? So yes, well, not necessarily art per se, but they do have to complete their fine art credit once they're in high school. And then what are fine art substitutions that students could take, Annette?
So there aren't substitutions. They're all within, well, I should say there's one substitution that's like on our campus, but they're all fine arts classes. So theater, which it could be in the performing arts or the technical theater. So performing or technical, any of the visual arts, performing arts like choir, band, orchestra, and acting. And then depending upon which programs of study your campuses offer, we have, like for example, at McNeil, we have floral design, and floral design does count as a fine arts credit. It's a class that you can't take as a freshman, you have to be in 10th grade, but that does count as your first course within that program of study, as well as your fine arts credit.
And there are a couple questions regarding early college high school. So early college high school is a school that helps students to not only complete their high school, 4 years of high school, but also with the potential to get 2 years of college courses taken care of. And so they are located, our early college high school is located at the ACC here in Round Rock. And let me go back to the question, I'm sorry. Does early college high school have any benefit over other high schools? And so really the only benefit is that they may have easier access to take more college courses, but all of our high schools in Round Rock ISD offer students the ability to take dual credit classes. So if they're looking to take a couple of college classes while they're in high school, they can do that on their traditional high school campus as well. Or like I said, our early college high school gives students the ability to complete up to their first 2 years of college and do so for free. If you are interested, we will be, our early college high school counselor and principal will be sharing information with parents across the district on their upcoming parent sessions and information sessions for students regarding the transfer of a student from their traditional high school over to the early college high school. One of the questions, I didn't attend any second language classes. What language can I take? So what language classes can I take for high school? There are plenty. Annette, can you give us kind of a little list of those?
Sure. So for your language credits, you could take Spanish, French, German, or Latin in our district, at least at McNeil. I don't know if there's any other languages at other campuses, but those are the four for your languages other than English requirement.
And then there's a question, would biomedical science be really beneficial for college? So it really depends on what you want to do as an adult. We tell our students, and I'm sure every counselor here can speak to this, that, you know, we want you to go to a college that is going to be the right fit for you. It may not necessarily be the biggest name. It may be a college that nobody's ever heard of, but it's going to be the right fit for you. And then you want to major in what you think is going to be best for you as you grow into adulthood. Going back to what Naomi was talking about earlier, that career interest inventory is a great start. That was shared with all of our middle school, our 8th grade students. So parents, if they did not share that information with you, just when you get home or log off of this, you can ask them to log into that EduThings. and let you see what they came up with. But that's going to give you some good insight into what your abilities are and where your interests really lie. Because sometimes we think we want to be one thing as an adult, but when we start really getting into the nitty gritty of what that job entails, then it may not actually be something that we enjoy. So we want students to really start to think about, is this something that I enjoy doing for fun, or is this going to be something that I want to do as a career? Because those two things may look a little different. I had a coworker, her son really loved science and math, and he thought he really wanted to be an engineer. But once he got to college and really started, doing the work, he was like, I'm not really sure this is really what I want to do. Now he finished his degree and he went off and became an engineer and realized, this is fun, as a hobby, but I don't necessarily want to do this 40 hours a day, 40 hours a week, every single week for the rest of my until I retire. So make sure that it's something that you really have a passion for, that you can see yourself doing as a career.
Dr. Lewis, if I can interject something here, I always tell my students, I wouldn't make this of the university I want to go to, because that may not be the university that has the program that you need. Like I always tell my kids, if at UT, they have the mascot of Bebo, but when Bebo gets sick, they send him to A&M, because A&M has one of the top veterinary programs around. So if the student's looking to go to be a veterinarian, they need to be looking at those schools that have those programs. For a lot of parents and students may not realize that the Juilliard of the Southwest is here in Texas with the University of North Texas, has an amazing fine arts program, and people from around the world come and audition at University of North Texas. Students that may want to go into education, Texas State University down in San Marcos is one of the top schools for education majors. So, don't try to think about, well, I want to get, it's got to be UT because UT is the be all end all. You've got to really make that fit and look for what fits. You've got to decide, do I want to go to a small school? Do I want to go to a big school? Do I want to be in state? Do I want to stay out of state? Who's going to give me the money, the scholarships for my program that I want to go into? A lot of Ms. Hanson and I were just having a discussion before this started that a lot of out-of-state schools give great scholarships to kids. University of Alabama is giving a lot of money to our Texas students. LSU has a Texas Tigers program that they're working to give scholarships to our students. So you've really got to take that time to visit schools and do your research for what programs are out there that fit the need for what the students want to study. Sorry, Dr. Lewis, for interrupting.
Oh, sorry, Cynthia. There's a great publication called Rugg's Recommendations, and that will go through by major. So just like Ms. Lightbush was saying, it's not necessarily the name on the front of the campus, because within each school, they have several colleges, and those colleges are ranked differently. And so Rugg's Recommendations is great because you can search through major, and it will share with you like colleges that are top for that particular major. It's not just like what's the best college, because there's not really such a thing as what's the best college, or university, because within a university there's so many colleges, right? So Rugg's Recommendations is pretty neat to do that, and they update. They use poll data from students that have graduated. They use lots of different data points to make those recommendations. So it's really neat just to be able to search by major versus searching by college name. And I forgot to mention ASL. So American Sign Language is another one of the languages you can take.
I see a lot of questions about the IB program. Since none of us are a counselor at either one of our IB schools, so Westwood is an IB school, so is Stony Point. My recommendation would be that you reach out to the lead counselor at those high schools to get more information about the IB program and if that would be best for you. There was one question in particular about a language. If your child has completed all their foreign language classes and they are going to one of those IB programs, it is a requirement that they take another foreign language. So just keep that in mind as you are planning out your 4-year plan. And Rugg's is RUGG. I'm going to take a couple more questions because we are coming up on our time. This session is being recorded. It will be posted on our counseling services site within by the end of the week. So you'll be able to go back and view that as well if you miss any part of our session tonight. So there's a question here about NCAA and student athletes. What about student athletes? Do they have additional requirements to graduate? Plus, how do they align their choices with Division I universities? So our student athletes, when we are looking at whether it's a Division I, II, or III, the courses that a student takes, your Division I school is going to take those as well. Now there are, depending on the college or university that your student is wanting to attend, they may say that certain courses do not count. For instance, if, let's say for instance, your child one semester does not pass, let's say a semester of English, and they have to go back and repeat that. There are a couple different ways in which that can happen. And so your college or university may say that it has to be a certain way. Or if your child decides that they're going to take a class outside of the school day, let's say if they're going to take an accelerated class, but it's through a virtual setting, but not through Rock ISD. Some colleges will not accept that as a course in regards to that student athlete being complete with all the courses that they have to take. So my suggestion is really, if your child is looking to go into potentially be a student athlete, regardless if it's Division I, II, or III, that they're talking with their high school counselor and their athletic director on a very regular basis to make sure that they are completing the correct amount of courses in order to be eligible for a scholarship or even for a placement on that team that they're looking into. So the question, I've seen this a couple of times, what would be the most preferred GPA when a college starts noticing you as a student? So a college won't start noticing you until you start reaching out to that college. And really, what we tell our students, or what I tell students, is that you want to make sure that you have a happy balance between your schoolwork and your personal life. Especially right now during COVID, I know we have seen a huge increase in stress and anxiety, not only among our students, but among the adults as well. So you want to do your best in all the classes that you take, but you also don't want to overwhelm yourself. There is a college out there for everyone. And like Ms. Eichbush mentioned, you may not go to the college with the biggest name, but it's going to be the college that has that is the best fit for you. And ultimately, that's what we want for all of our students, is that you find and navigate your way through life that's going to be the best for you. It may not necessarily be what you envisioned when you were 5 or 6, or it may not be the college that you had planned to go to, but it's going to be what's best for you. So yes, so I don't know if I answered your question directly, but making sure that you have that balance between what you're doing in the classroom and then your personal life as well. And I think that's probably a great segue to our next conversation with the school counselor, which will be on November 17th. And we'll be talking in particular about balancing schoolwork and personal life. Like we said, we know middle school transition to high school can be really exciting, but it can also be really stressful, and that's for the student and for the parent. And so we want to make sure that we give all of our students, K-12, the skills and tools that they need to be able to be successful, not only in school, but in life just in general. Before we go, I would like to see if our counselors have anything, parting words that they would like to share with our families. Naomi, would you like to go first?
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us tonight and for all of your great questions. I know you might have had some other ones that we didn't maybe get to, and if that's the case, please feel free to reach out to any one of us. And you can find us, on the district website, or our school websites too. You'll find me at Canyon Vista. We'd be happy to talk to y'all further. Also the transition guide that Dr. Lewis posted in the chat there, please look at that. And then that will give you the timeline, the dates. I know some of you had questions about that. And Dr. Lewis mentioned, but that is specifically reach out to your middle school counselor to get a little better idea of when those dates are. Like somebody had asked about when you're going to meet with your high school counselors. And it might vary a little bit from campus to campus. So just reach out to that middle school counselor and we can give you the most current information that we have. So thank you guys.
Celia, would you like to share any parting words?
Sure. So I know this transition, especially if you're a first-time parent to high school, it can seem a little scary and a little overwhelming, but I want to reassure you that your counselors are here and your high school counselors are going to be helping every single year. And I promise you that by the time your students are juniors and seniors, they're going to know what they're doing and they're going to be able to tell you, Mom, Dad, this is what I'm doing. And not to say that you're not going to have any part in playing in the role, but they're going to know what they're doing and they're going to know what they're planning, and it's going to become second nature to you and your students. So don't get so caught up in the, I guess, in the fear and the scariness of sometimes high school can seem like, because there's so many people that are going to be there to help you. It's going to be great.
And Annette?
So I would like to say ditto to what Ms. Galvan and Ms. Eichbush said, and especially what Dr. Lewis said about colleges, that there is a right fit for you, whether it's in the United States or even another country. There are so many places for your talents and for what you want to do. And I also, just because there's so much information out there, I'd really encourage families to log on to their high school counseling websites. I know I'll put a plug in for the McNeil website. There's a lot of really good information about college and career planning, credits, graduation requirements, advanced academics, all those things that you probably have questions about. There's a lot of information on our websites for that. So please take a look at those high school counseling sites and feel free to email the counselors, your middle school counselors or the high school counselors where your students will be going next year. And at McNeil, we're looking forward to meeting with our kiddos. We're sending out our orientation information videos next month in December, and we'll start meeting with students in February, and we'll have parent evenings in January. So look through those websites, write down all your questions, and come ready to ask, because we want to be able to answer those questions for you.
Well, thank you, ladies, for joining us tonight and being here to provide information to our parents and our students that are with us and answering all the questions that are out there. And thank you, parents and students, for logging in. We know your time is precious and we know that this is a busy time of the year. So thank you for joining us. We are going to go ahead and sign off, but please join us on the 17th as well for balancing schoolwork and personal time. Thank you all.
Night.